I have an email sent in by an anonymous person asking to get some critique on their female head, in particular the nose. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we got going on here. From what I can see, it looks like they have used the Ryan Kingsline mesh as a reference. And for those that are not aware of that, it is up here in your lightbox under Tool. Where's Tool? There we go. And Ryan Kingsline mesh. So just double click on that and that'll load up for you. We can go ahead and do it real quick here. And here we go. This is an awesome anatomy reference, especially since it's in 3D in ZBrush on your computer. You know, you can import this into other projects and overlay it and use it. It also has everything labeled in here for a ton of different muscle groups. So for example, let's see, where are our deltoids? We'll just, click on our deltoids and there we go. Deltoids labeled out for us. Awesome. And there is, like I said, everything else in here labeled for you. The only thing we're really missing here is skin. There's fat pads and everything else in here as well. So obviously breasts and some on the butt. But yes, awesome anatomy reference, which is what this person has used. So definitely check it out and use it if you're looking for some additional reference. It looks like the way that they used it, it looks like they overlaid some mesh over top of the skull. So this is the Ryan Kingsline skull that they appended. Some ears here, which I think are from that model. I think it's the same eyes and everything else. And it looks like this is their basic shape. Awesome. Well, they asked specifically about the nose, but we can also talk about a couple other things here as well. So it's really hard to do a critique of something in particular if I don't have the reference that you were using. So if you guys want to get critiques in the future, you can of course send me your ZTool files. Just email me, follygon@gmail.com, but also include a reference image so I know exactly what you were looking at while you were sculpting. And if it's multiple images, you can send those as well. It's totally fine. So objectively, there are a couple things in here that I can just tell sculpturally that we'd probably want to correct. And they might be a little tough for you to see initially. So if you are sculpting on something for a long time, what I often recommend is coming up into your light menu up here and moving your light around. I'll move it up really tall, or really high, I should say, up to the top of the sphere. And I'll also switch my material over to the basic material. And of course, you can do that in your material palette over there. And then we can kind of see a little bit better what's going on here with these nasolabial folds. There's this really strong transition happening right through here, and it's creating this really kind of awkward shadow and divot. It's also happening right here in the crease of the nose. And if I had to guess, let me move my light back. If I had to guess, I would say that this is probably caused by the pinch brush at some point working on this. So if you switch over to the pinch brush and hold the Alt key and do a quick stroke, you'll see that it will pinch in on the geometry. But what also happens when you use the pinch brush is that the area of effect, or the focal shift of your brush, you can see that little inner circle moving as I move that slider, that is kind of the fall off of the brush. So what that causes to happen when you're doing that Alt stroke and kind of pinching in is that it can cause some of the geometry around that area to raise up. Now I don't know if that's exactly what happened here, but it is a very similar effect to what we could see for something like that. So what I would recommend doing is, moving your material, shifting your light around a lot, and try to find these awkward areas where the form isn't turning the way we want it to, or we're starting to get some weird transitions, some really hard or sharp, awkward shadows, those kind of things. So it's not too hard to fix either for something like this. I'm just coming through using my clay tubes brush, Alt stroking, kind of depressing that back in. And for something like this in the nasolabial fold coming down off the nose, I think placement and everything is fine. Again, don't know the reference that's being used, but I can just say that, maybe we can kind of work on this transition a little bit, just kind of softly stroking and blending through there. You don't want your nasolabial fold to be, I would say on average, super strong unless the character's a little bit older. As you age, the more wrinkles and skin sagging you're going to have going on. So I would say for the most part, you could probably erase a good chunk of this. And just because we know something is there doesn't mean, we have to sculpt it in necessarily. That's why I always recommend looking at real people for references. For example, the philtrum, that's a little divot on your upper lip. It's not typically that strong in most people. You know, for me, for instance, it's not really that visible. So a lot of the time, you know, you can get rid of that kind of stuff. It's not that big of a deal. But again, you know, could be there in the reference that was being used for this. So I would just say mainly look for those areas where there are these kind of awkward transitions. Switch your material up, and maybe we can look for a couple more of those really fast. I think maybe in the corner of the mouth, I would try to get this feeling a little bit more fleshy, a little bit more deep for that corner of the mouth. I can't really tell if you have a mouth bag going on here. Let's turn on double. And so no mouth bag, but there is a little bit of a divot. So that might be something you want to consider doing as well, just to get that feeling a bit more natural. Start sculpting in a mouth bag, and then we'll give you the opportunity to get in there and work on the inner portion of your lips. Because right now the separation between the lips feels really flat, and just being able to create a mouth bag and get inside the mouth, sculpt on the kind of rounded depression parts of the lips where they're kind of connecting up, can be very helpful for that reason. So maybe you could, just for now, we could maybe mask off the lower lip here just so we get kind of a separation between there, just very quickly. And then Control W to make a polygroup so we can get that back if we need to. Switch over to my transpose tool, and I don't know, I'll soften that mask a couple times. And let's see, let's use the move brush, let that quick save do its thing. And I'm going to turn on AccuCurve with the move brush, which is under your brush menu under brush curve, I believe. And I'll just kind of pull back on that corner a little bit, just a touch. And maybe just kind of tuck that up and in a little bit. I really recommend trying to push really far back on those inner corners for your lips. It can really help to figure out that kind of fleshy, kind of folded area around that area. Start getting a lot more of a fleshy feel in that corner. It's a tough thing to sculpt, and that's why I really recommend doing the mouth bag, as I find it very helpful and it makes it quite a bit easier for getting in there. Another thing I like to do around this area a lot of the time is kind of follow through with this line a little bit and kind of over exaggerate that separation at first. I find that the mouth kind of starts to turn a bit faster around that inner corner. I'm just starting to work on that and also kind of help figure out that fleshy feeling coming around this area. But yeah, I recommend playing around with this. I recommend going the mouth bag route personally, but you know, it's all up to you. I think it's totally possible to sculpt a mouth close. I just think it's quite a bit more difficult. All right, we'll spend like 2 more seconds there. Cool. Let's see, what else do we got going on here? Let's shift our light back around. I would say the fat pad around the eye up here is probably a little bit too heavy. Your geometry is not really doing you many favors, as well as I can see kind of that pinched area up there. So I would maybe trim that back a little bit and then flow the rest of that to blend a little bit better. If I step back a little bit here, undo a few times, you got this kind of super tight transition happening here, and that's just kind of another one of those areas where the shadow is getting a little bit too strong in my opinion. So just kind of get this feeling a little bit more fleshy, blend that out, and go from there. In terms of your eyelids, I don't know, I think you've done a pretty good job at these. I would say try to get a little bit more shape in them. I'm not sure if you're going for super anatomical accuracy. You didn't really mention too much in terms of what you were aiming for, so I would say try to get a little bit more of the kind of, you know, instead of just getting that basic curve, 1 to 2, if we're on the right subtool there. Let's see what's going on with my mask. There we go. I would try to get a little bit more shape out of these. In particular, let's step down, get some subdivs, that makes this a lot easier. Try to get more of the kind of 1, 2, 3 line coming down here. So basic shape that we're looking for, instead of this curve, we want this to be a little bit more kind of squared off, kind of rounded, kind of look for that first initial hit. I'll show you exactly what I mean here in just a moment. So on the upper eyelid, we typically have that hit happening more towards the inner corner, and on the lower eyelid, it's typically a little bit further out. So this can just help get a little bit more gesture and shape in here, as well as think about your lens for your eye. This will be an important thing. You don't have it right now, so you can just see from the extreme angle, looking from the bottom up, and this will be true on the top down for the lower lid as well, that we're going to want the geometry or form here around the lens, or where the lens will be, to come out a little bit further. Your eyelids might not be thick enough. It's a little hard for me to tell. At least the upper lid is maybe kind of bordering on a little bit too thin. And then down here, same thing. So look at some reference for lids with lenses. Maybe look at your own eye, take some pictures. What I recommend doing is looking from one side to the other and take a picture at each and just see how your eyelid deforms as you do that. So there's quite a lot of form change that can happen there with the shape of your eyeball. In terms of silhouette, you know, I think the jaw maybe gets a little bit narrow down here for my liking, so I would maybe consider widening this out. From the back view, you can kind of see that a little bit as well. You know, it's a female face, so a little bit more slim, but I think you could maybe work on that a little bit as well. And other than that, I think there's some good stuff going on here. I think the profile's looking pretty good, and I think a lot of this is looking really good. So I think that's pretty much all the notes I have for now in terms of what you can do to push forward with the little information that I have. I think, you know, you could. It doesn't look like you've done too much on the neck, so I won't really comment on that. But everything else looking good. Keep pushing forward on it, and I look forward to seeing some more stuff from you in the future. Good luck.